to them, we can do that. For some reason, the transcript always starts now. So let me see if I can turn that off. There we go. Good. I think that's worked okay. So we have the topic of team building today. So team building, why do we do team building? It's most probably a good question to start with. Why do we do team building?
What is team building?
It's a good question. You know, what is, even one step backwards, you know, what makes a team? Is a good starting point. What makes a team?
Yeah.
A bunch of people working together, I think.
Yeah, a bunch of people working together. It can be as little as 2, or it can be as big as 500,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just as soon as 2 people have to do something together, it kind of becomes a team, right? Normally, what would be the normal team size that you think about in business? What's the kind of, because 500,000, you know, you're not going to get all of those people together in a room at the same time, kind of thing. So what's your experience? What's the kind of normal team size that you think you would come across?
Well, in what I do, I think it's usually like around 30 to maybe 60 people at most that I've come across.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. Absolutely, not uncommon at all. Especially when you work on projects and things like that. You know, the larger the project, of course, the more people you have. Absolutely. And so, why do corporates and even sports? Of course, you can always look to sports when we talk about teams. Why do they do team building? Why is team building a good team, even important?
Well, especially when we work online, like we are in this company, we are all working remotely. So I think for us, it means even more to get physically with each other and talk about different things, because you can't schedule like a call for a cup of coffee and a quick chat with somebody usually. So I think it's important for us to first of all get to know each other and then talk about our vision and make sure we are on the same page, and everything is easier in person, of course.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Mina, any thoughts from your side?
Well, I think that the idea is to make the team working better together. I don't know, to make understand each other better. I mean, like, I don't know, really. I mean, I think it's really that topic of team building. It's really like usually it's organized like we gather in some place and get around like hanging around and everything, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether there are some like let's say more structured forms of team building, like I don't know. I mean, this is obviously great and necessary, but I don't know, like how is team building different from casual hanging around?
No, that's good input, because there is the relationship side of it. Getting to know each other is an important aspect of working together. And it's difficult to work with somebody that you know nothing about, right? Or you've never met before,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you have to work with them. So relationship is important also for any team, any kind of working relation. And Sarah, you mentioned it. It is about higher performance. It's kind of the classic saying that 1 + 1 = 3. if you can make that happen, where you get one person and another person, and together, actually they can do more than if they were just working individually. So 1 + 1 = 3. That's the goal of kind of building a high-performing team, is to get them to be able to achieve much greater things than if they were just all working individually. And often in big businesses, projects especially, often what happens is you get 1 + 1 = 1.5, actually not even 2, because there are so many frictions within the project team, you know, poor communication, people duplicating each other's work and roles. And so often what you see when you really look at the performance of a team on a project or in a business, when you first take a look at the team performance, it really looks like 1 + 1 = 1.5 and not even 2, let alone getting to 1 + 1 = 3. Now, of course, this is super well known in sports. You know, of course, the sports have clearly been far more focused on team performance than business. But exactly the same kind of factors, rules, almost psychology is exactly the same for a sports team as it is for a business team. Okay, the context is different. I mean, football, I hate to bring that up. I'm not a huge football fan myself. I prefer other sports, but football is a great example of this. The English football team especially. They have genuinely some of the best individual football players in the world. Put them together as a team, on paper, they should win every international football tournament they play. But they never do. In fact, they're usually completely terrible. And it's because of that exact equation. You know, you bring all of these players together, it doesn't mean that they can play as a team. And often what happens is they've got fantastic players, but 1 + 1 = 1.5. And sometimes you can have a team with people that are not as good, as exceptional individually, but somehow they're able to beat some of the best football players in the world because they've built an amazing team and they can work together to perform at much higher levels. Does that make sense? I don't always like using the football analogy, but it's a kind of common one that most people can relate to.
Well,
Yeah,
yes.
I think it makes sense. Sorry.
I mean, there is a problem when you have like a bunch of extraordinary individuals where everyone wants to be like the first, and then usually I mean, it can lead to different, you know, conflicts, and I don't know. Generally, it's harder to have like a great team with a lot of extraordinarily individuals, like, so but I don't know, like, what really makes the good team and how do you build a good team? That is really an important question. I don't know what is the answer.
Well, let's try and answer that. Let's take a look at that, because you're absolutely right. Often you can get you know, some fantastic people in a team, but their egos will get in the way. They'll compete internally with each other. And unfortunately, the way that most businesses are set up, of course, everybody has their goals for the year and everybody gets measured on their performance. And often they might even get a bonus on their personal performance. So the way that the business system is set up actually drives a kind of very selfish individual performance. And very rarely does it reward team performance. And so what you often get, even in you might have brilliant people in a team, but they're all competing against each other, you know, for the amount of money they get at the end of the year, which when you're trying to build business, especially new, small, upcoming businesses, this can easily get in the way and make a business fail. So what makes a business perform together really well? Let's try and answer that question. Let me share. Got a few slides we can jump into and discuss as we go along. Let me put that on presentation mode. There we go. So the first one is almost the negative view of the team. So if you put 10 brilliant people together, what are the things that get in the way of them performing as a team? And we've kind of touched on a few of those in the background. But here we go, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And it's a really well-known kind of a system that's used in sports teams. It's very much taken up into business. A guy called Mr. Bass came up with it back 20 odd years ago. But it starts with, first of all, the absence of trust. As soon as I say that, it usually becomes, clear, of course. Well, new people that come and join together are not necessarily going to trust each other. So it starts with the absence of trust. Then the second layer that gets in the way of a really high-performing team is then fear of conflict. Often people don't want to get into arguments with each other. They don't want to, be seen as argumentative, and they want to avoid the conflict. I think we talked about this a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. Different cultures are slightly different on this. Some cultures actually enjoy a bit more arguments and are happy to give a bit of feedback. Other cultures, super conflict averse and will not have an open conflict with each other. This gets in the way of becoming a good team, and the reason why it gets in the way of becoming a good team is if you can't have an argument or a disagreement, and if you can't give feedback when something is not working, you can never put it right. First of all, you don't know that you might be doing something wrong if people are not giving you the feedback or arguing with you because they have a different opinion. First of all, you don't know that exists. And then the second part is you can't put it right. And so fear of conflict is often a huge blocker or barrier in teams becoming successful, high-performing teams. So absence of trust first, then fear of conflict second. The third level is lack of commitment. And by this, I mean real personal commitment to the team and to the objective of that team, the goal of that team, which seems a little bit odd. Often, I might have a personal objective to achieve, but often I'm not also committed to helping my colleagues achieve their goals as well, right? Sometimes you get people that are fantastic at helping the team, but they're not actually committed to, the overarching goal of the team. So lack of commitment is the third level. Fourth level is avoidance of accountability. And this is where the blame game comes into things. So everybody's pointing at everybody else in terms of, oh, they're responsible, I'm not responsible, that person's responsible. And the team does not take collective accountability for achieving the goal, right? Or for any of the other three that go below it. And then the final level that prevents teams becoming amazing teams is not focused on results. Either they're focused on the theory or the process or being busy, but they're not focused on the outcome, the result that is required. And those are the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That makes sense? How do you feel about that? How do you react when I've gone through those 5 dysfunctions Thoughts, reactions?
When comparing it what we talked about for team building, I think the absence of trust and the fear of conflict are something that can be really worked on, like when you come together on a team building or go somewhere with your team. And I think it can be useful to help us all work as a unit. And it can prevent some of these fears that we might have, which cause the dysfunction. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, all of these can be worked on. You're absolutely right. And team building exercises, for example, can definitely help that if they're structured well. Absolutely. Yeah. Other thoughts, reactions?
Well, I mean, yes, I can see. Currently we're working on a small team, but in my previous company I worked in a very large team, and yeah, we we had a lot of problems. Yeah, and I think that the more people are involved, that there is a larger chance to have these type of problems, because I don't know, I think that you can easily avoid responsibility. You can fear conflict. You don't want to stand out of the group because you're then feeling separated from the group, or I don't know, maybe you have a conflict with one person, but still it's like you are causing I don't know, I think that everything is easier when you have a smaller group of people, because then it's easier to communicate, and also it's easier to, I don't know, kind of see your role very clearly. I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic insight. Actually, you bring a fantastic insight. It's often why small startup businesses with a small team almost outperform what they would normally be capable of achieving. That's why small, highly motivated startup teams can often achieve super fantastic things. Then you get into the large corporates, and then more of these dysfunctions get in the way of becoming a high-performing, agile, fast-moving team. And often in smaller teams, you kind of have to be focused on results in smaller teams. You can't not deliver on the results, especially as a small consultancy or something like that. You have to deliver, and everybody's in the same situation. They all have to deliver. So fantastic insight. You're absolutely right. This model is super useful on several layers. So first of all, you can talk about it in a team. So, often when I take a new team, or I join a new project, or start a new project, or lead a project, one of the first things I'll do, I'll bring out this slide and walk people through it. Just make them aware that these are the dysfunctions in a team. That's already a great help. Raising the awareness of these topics, right, already helps a lot. The second thing I do when I'm joining teams that are already in existence, projects are already underway, that kind of thing, is bring this out and then get people to kind of rank or rate on each of these levels where they think the team is between, amazing levels of trust versus no trust at all, and just get them to put a dot on a line basically between the two. And then you can get a very quick assessment on, where does the team think they are on here. And what often might happen, for example, say the commitment, they might all be really high on the commitment scale, because, on a project, often people are very committed to a project outcome, for example. But then when they rate the trust or the fear of conflict, it's really low. So it doesn't mean that, you know, if you've got absence of trust, then nobody's focused on results. Actually, it could be super focused on results, but still have fear of conflict and, you know, absence of trust. So it's useful very much in two ways. One, it's useful to talk about this in a team to raise the awareness of these topics. Two, it's really good to have people kind of rate each of these. And then you can use that as a baseline to work on over time, right? You know, come back 6 months later, has it improved? You know, that kind of thing. So 5 dysfunctions of the team. That's the first and starting point for building fantastic teams, is to actually start to work on this. Make sense? Then let's start with trust. So it always starts with trust. So what can we do about building trust? Well, these are a few words around trust. So what do you think each of these means in relationship to, you know, a team? If we talk about credibility, reliability, intimacy, and authenticity, tell me what you think these mean in relation to a team.
Well, like in any other relationship, I guess, in your life, you have to trust your teammates, and I think that's built over time if they do what they say they are going to do, and like the consistency and their integrity.
Good word.
Yeah, and also I like the authenticity, like the motives behind everything and the trustworthiness. So it's really interesting to put it this way, because I think it's basically another type of relationship in your life, like the relationship you have with your teammates. So you really do have to trust.
No, absolutely. And say, let's pick credibility. What would make somebody credible? What does the credibility mean?
If he does what he said he will do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that goes to reliability as well, right? You know, delivering, if you know, if you have a task to do, reliably delivering on it, right? Absolutely. And the credibility linked to that is often, you know, so I come with a skill. I'm an accountant, I'm a programmer, I'm a data analyst, you know, etc. So your CV, if you like, is the credible part. You know, it's built on your experience and your credibility, level of credibility. Intimacy, I think, speaks for itself. So this is about the closeness of a relationship, right? Absolutely. And this is why, you know, even going out and with a drink with your, you know, your teammates, this helps build intimacy, right? So it is still a part of building great teams, is just being able to get to know each other, and often having those coffee cup discussions or going for a drink after the intimacy bit. What about authenticity? This is an interesting topic. What about authenticity?
Well, I think that you can't have really intimacy without authenticity. I don't know, maybe I would switch those, like, but yeah, probably like how honest you are in your, I don't know.
Intentions, yeah.
Yeah.
What happens if you're not authentic?
I think you also lose credibility.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right. It destroys all of the other three, you know. And I think we are very clever animals in a way. We can spot very quickly when somebody is not being authentic. We're actually really good at human beings at detecting when somebody is not authentic. Like when somebody comes in and says, "Oh, how are you?" You know if they're asking because they're interested, or they're asking just because, that's the normal thing they say in the morning, right? You know when somebody is genuinely interested in you, or if they're just saying something and they're not really interested. We're very good at picking that stuff up.
Yeah, but for some reason, people detect like other people are not authentic, but still they are playing that game. Like, I don't think that many people are actually authentic, but like everyone is agreeing on playing that same game. So I'm not sure, like, why is that the case?
Yeah, I think there's most probably levels, right? I think everybody's comfortable with a certain level of, unauthenticity.
Yeah.
And that can be the "hi, how are you" kind of level. But when it really gets into deeply trusting somebody, if somebody is playing a bit the politics, or if somebody is saying certain words and then just behaving in completely the opposite way, then this can break any kind of trust very quickly. And often, then you just simply don't trust them, or people will even talk about it in the team. "Oh, we don't trust him because he says one thing and then goes and does, completely another thing," right? So it's really important, because when it goes into this equation, I think I pulled it up briefly in another training at the high level, but this is the chance to go into it deeper, because trust is fundamental for building high-performing teams. If you can't trust each other, you'll never get to a level of performance above the kind of 1 + 1 = 1.5, right? So the implications of a trust equation are really important. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, that builds trust. Authenticity can break the trust very, very, very quickly. How, though, can you get a team to trust each other really quickly without having to understand that trust equation? Well, there is actually a really simple way, and this is it. Deliver on your promises. This is the fastest way to build trust in any team. Absolutely the fastest way. So anytime a promise is made, whether it's a written down project deliverable, or it's just, somebody says, "Oh, I'll go and do that for you," or "I'll send you that PowerPoint presentation tomorrow," that's a promise that's being made. And the receiver of that promise always makes a mental note. It's almost psychological. If it built in. If somebody says, "Oh, I'll send you that presentation tomorrow," you'll remember that immediately, and that gets logged in your brain. And then the next day you'll go, have they delivered that presentation? They promised me they'll deliver the presentation today, and it's not turned up. Well, that's a break in a promise, and that will kill trust very quickly. Often come across this 3 strikes idea around promises. A bit of an American around baseball. You have 3 strikes, then you're out. But I think people get 3 chances on promises. The first time you break a promise, someone will kind of forgive you, kind of ignore it. The second time you break a promise, a person will take note of that and go, hey, this is kind of the second time. Am I going to trust? Am I not? The third time you break a promise, that's it. The trust is definitely broken at that point in time. And then to get that trust back again can take a long time. Even if you deliver the next 10 things in a row, you might still not have the trust of that person, right? So deliver on your promises, deliver on time and in full. And whenever you can't deliver a promise, that happens sometimes, it's really important to go back to the stakeholder, the person you've made the promise to, and let them know before the promise timeline is due. And often people are perfectly okay with that. If you say, hey, look, I know I promised you that PowerPoint presentation today. I just can't do it because, you know, I've got this fire to deal with. People will accept that as long as you keep them informed. The worst thing to do is not deliver and then 2 days later say, hey, sorry, I couldn't deliver it, still can't deliver it. You know, that's almost even worse for trust. So teams and projects, etc. Something that you can drive and push very easy is then that message around deliver on your promises, deliver on your promises, deliver, deliver, deliver on your promises. And that can also have a massive impact on accelerating the team building and trust within a team. Thoughts, reactions again?
Well, I think we've all like broken trust and built it again, like over the last couple of years. But you learn like what to expect, and you become more upfront with everybody. Like, because I know for myself, when I started, this was my first job and everything, and I wanted to say yes to everything and deliver everything. Sometimes couldn't make it. But yeah, I mean, it's something you learn, and if people are patient and also understanding, and if you are as well, I think you come to a stage of trust that's like, okay. And it can also, of course, always be better, but I think there's like just a stage of trust that is okay, not too much, but you can rely on like people. I don't know.
Absolutely. You know, you trust that you definitely learn, you know, through experience, and also how to manage your promises as well, right? You know, not to promise when you know that you can't deliver. I mean, that's a killer. But more importantly, yes, you can learn individually, but also a team can learn how to promises, right? And that's where it really gets good, when the team is learning that together in terms of delivering on their promises within the team. Then it becomes super great, you know, really in terms of building trust very quickly, just simply by focusing on driving that message of, hey, as a team, we have to deliver on our promises. And then if the team gets good at delivering on their promises, everybody begins to trust each other. And from that, then it's a great platform then to build, you know, greater performance in the team. Absolutely. Which brings us to forming, storming, norming, performing. Have you heard of this one before? It's quite common.
No. Sounds like a rap song.
Exactly. It's a bit of a rap song. Hey, we should do that. We should do like a project forming, storming, norming, performing rap song. That would be fun. That's an idea for one of my videos. It's a very, very well-known concept in building great teams. All sports teams go through this process. Some of the more experienced leaders will have been trained on this and will put their teams through this process as well. Created by a guy called Bruce Tuckman way back in 1965. And it was built on the basis of what he saw in the psychology in teams, right, in sports teams. And if you think about it logically, it kind of makes sense, and it's linked back to the 5 dysfunctions of a team. So first of all, you have to form a team. Of course, the team comes together. It's a group of people. As we've talked about, you have to form a team, right? Second, then, storming. This comes to the trust, and it comes to the avoidance of conflict. You have to go through a kind of a level of conflict for everybody to understand, one, how each other works, how each other communicate, where the responsibilities lie, how to have an argument in a professional way, right? How to have an argument in a professional way. So storming is a really important phase in creating a highly performing team. Then you can get to the kind of normal operating mode in a team, and then you can build towards the highly performing team. So forming, storming, norming, performing. Forming. When we think about forming a team, what factors might come up in just bringing a team together?
I've learned yesterday like how they do interviews for DeepMind in London, and how many interviews are based on do you fit into a certain team? Like, does your personality, your thinking, do you have any red flags? Like, so for example, I think for bigger companies and companies that are maybe more modern in that sense, I think they do it now. They really try to bring people together that could possibly like make the best start for a team. But in many other ways, I think people mostly hope for the best. They look at credentials and diplomas and just hope for the best. But I think it's becoming more of a standard to really try to see if like a new person would work well with the existing team members. So
what you Oh, hello, Jamie.
Hi, Matt. Sorry I was late. But no, I was just saying I agree that like we had a project before where they like chose us all based on personality. And they're like the boss thought like, oh, these guys all think like me, this is great, like yeah, we'll make a team of that. And then like we had someone came in and we had to do like a Myers-Briggs test, and we all had like the exact same personality type, because obviously this boss was like, yeah, that's great, we all think the same. But then it didn't really work out because we were all sort of like kind of semi attention deficit, like just kind of like big ideas, but like then in the end we needed different types of people to finish the project, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So you both picked on a really good points there. So yes, there are certain natural types that teams fit well together. You know, we've done the communication and work preferences, the very simple one, right? So you could say, okay, well, maybe all creative people tend to be great at working together, or all logical people. But as Jamie's just pointed out, there can be downsides of that. If everybody thinks the same way, then what's going to be the challenge with that?
It was like, because we had like there were two groups there, and the other boss had like chosen all like the more logical people, and then like the we could just see the outcome. Like the logical people kind of had something, like, but they didn't really have good ideas, so they were their product was a bit rubbish. And then we didn't really have a product because we had so many like really good ideas, but then like we didn't really like carry them out because we all just kept getting distracted, like thinking, but we could do this and then this and then this, and then having like really big visions and like really enjoying that side. But then like that's why we had to sort of like come together and merge the teams a bit.
Absolutely. So, you know, back to Sarah's point, where there is good theory and science behind pulling to really get a team that can effectively deliver stuff together. You actually need a bit of everything. You need the creative kind of people, generate great ideas, right? Creative kind of people. You need the logical people that can kind of balance that a little bit, like, okay, fantastic idea, let's assess it logically. Okay, 50% of the ideas, no chance, just cannot be implemented. Oh, but 50% of the ideas, yeah, okay, they can be implemented. Then you need the procedural people to work out, okay, from now, okay, so we've got the idea, what are the steps we go through then to be able to implement that idea? So you need the procedural thinking as well. And then, of course, you need the people, the interpersonal people, then to work out, okay, who needs to do what in that process, and how do we work as a team to get there, right? The challenge with that, though, is the storming piece, right? Because, you know, creative personality and communication style will not work well with the procedural style, because, you know, the creative people will see the procedural people as slowing them down, as preventing them moving forward. They'll argue with the logical people because they think all of their ideas are fantastic. The procedural people will think the creative people are just crazy and coming up with ideas all the time, not getting anything done. So the storming bit is where the magic happens in a team. If you can get all the different personalities working together, trusting each other, even if they talk a completely different language, if you can get them to have conflict in a professional way and respect each other's views and opinions, and if you can get through that storming phase, then the team can start delivering amazing results. This is where the 1 + 1 really starts to equal 3 instead of 1.5, right? So the storming phase in that process is absolutely critical. What happens when you add one new person to the team?
Chaos.
It can be chaos. Absolutely. I've seen some fantastic teams and been in a few really good, high-performing teams. You know, maybe 10, 12 people in the team. Amazing. One new person in that team can completely disrupt, completely wreck the team dynamics. Which is why then, if you're hiring then into a team, often the people will consider it and ask the question: is this a good team fit for our team? Yeah. So every time a new person is added to the team, you kind of have to go all the way back to forming again, even if you've reached the heights of a high-performing team. Anytime you add somebody or take somebody away from a team, you have to go through the forming and storming phase all over again. Now, often you can do that quickly. You know, maybe it just takes a month or two to go through that cycle. Sometimes, if you can't get past the storming phase, it's most probably not the most politically correct thing to say, but I've seen it happen many times, where a new person joins the team, if they don't get through the forming and storming phase, and actually that new team member eventually kind of gets rejected from the team. Either they get pushed out or their lives are made hell and they end up leaving. I've seen that happen many, many times.
You can also see, I know, like, as well, like when someone leaves a team, like we had like a friendship, just me and two others, like when I was back in England, and we had like sort of a system. I'd come up with ideas, and then there'd be the next guy would decide which ones would get us killed and which ones like wouldn't get us killed, and then the third guy would plan everything out. And then we basically had a situation where the guy in the middle sort of wasn't there anymore. So then I had these ideas, and I called over this other guy when I was living in Germany, the one who organized this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I've got this idea. Let's do this. Like, let's go to Strasbourg on bikes, and like it'll all be okay. Like, we'll plan it out. Like, and I tried to do a bit of the planning, which was also a mistake. And then basically we almost died in the Schwarzwald. We ended up like stranded there, like in the snow for 5 hours. Phones were dead, and like we were just snowed under. And he started getting like minor forms of frostbite. Like just basically a disaster. But like, yeah, like that was just because like the one person that's supposed to like tell us when my ideas are going to get us killed was gone. Like, just chaos.
Yeah, that's a bit of an extreme example, but it's a good one. It's a very good one.
His parents banned him on ever going on holiday with me again. They were like, you almost got our son killed. Like, I was like, I didn't mean to. Like, somewhat like people weren't playing their roles. Like.
Well, exactly, and that last point was the important one, right? You miss a role, and sometimes, especially if we go back a bit to the communication and work preferences, you might get one person in a team that acts as the bridge between the different work preferences and communication styles. You know, they can almost like the translator in the team. You know, will translate the creative input then and talk to the procedural person so that they can kind of understand each other and work with each other. And often you see when that person that fills that role as a bit of the glue in the team, you hear that expression as well sometimes. When that person leaves, then the team can really fall apart. You don't have the person that's bridging, translating, or acting as the glue in the team, right? So it's a good, important aspect of understanding how to create high-performing teams is that, first of all, you have to form. Anytime somebody leaves or joins, you have to kind of form again. That often gets forgotten, of course, because, you know, an established team thinks, hey, we're the team, and doesn't think that every time somebody comes and goes, you form a new team. That storming phase is a really important thing. And there are ways to accelerate the storming phase. We've already talked about trust. Jamie, you missed a bit the trust equation, but I remember we had a discussion on the trust equation before and the 5 dysfunctions. I'll just flick up the 5 functions again, just so Jamie can quickly see it. We focused on how to build trust. We will give you ways of getting through that conflict phase, the storming phase, and then commitment, accountability, and results. We won't cover that now. We'll come back to those things a little bit later. But the first 2 are the most important steps in generating high-performing teams. And the way that you can accelerate the first 2, the trust building, we've talked about deliver on your promises, how to get through the storming phase as fast as possible. This is where the team building exercises come into it. We talked a bit at the beginning around team building exercises. Creating activities which are almost designed to create a bit of competition and a bit of arguments in the team are ways that you can get people through that storming phase very, very quickly. I was very, very fortunate a long time ago to work a little bit with the coach that was working on the English rugby team. So he was the coach for the kind of brain coach, if you like, for the English rugby team. Fantastic person. And I was very fortunate to join them on a weekend, one of these English country manor estate places. And I was amazed that they were doing all of the team building exercises that I had been doing in business. They were doing the build the tower thing. They were doing build a raft, you know, in the water. You have to make a boat so that you can sail. They were doing the high wire exercises where you have to build a physical tower and climb up it and then fall off it. They were doing all the exercises that I had been doing in business. It was fantastic to see that they were doing those exercises for exactly the same reasons as we were doing team building exercises in business. Very transferable between building sports teams into building business teams. So you can almost invent any exercise that brings people together, puts them under a bit of time pressure. Time pressure is an important thing. Competition always drives a bit of pressure in terms of priority, and everybody gets a little bit competitive, especially in business. You know, they love competing with each other. And an exercise that is not as straightforward as it first appears, like building a tower. It sounds kind of easy and stupid, but if you give them materials where it's not so easy to build a tower, like, I don't know, pancakes, cupcakes, balloons, just bits of paper and some paper clips, you know, these kind of things. One, it's actually hilarious to watch them try to work things like that out sometimes. But what happens is all of the communication preferences come into play because they're under time pressure and they're under competition. They want to win. Extrovert, introvert starts to play into it. You will get arguments, or you get the opposite, complete avoidance of arguments. And then actually always, if they really avoid arguments in an exercise, they will fail the exercise. Can guarantee you that if they really start avoiding any conflict, they won't perform the task at all. But then you can reflect them back afterwards in terms of how did the exercise go, what did they observe, how did they communicate with each other, how did they, pick on the final design, how do you think they performed as a team? And the reflection at the end of a team building exercise is the key to the success. Very fun to do these kind of exercises. You have to then get them to think about dynamics of how the people worked in the exercise, and then they'll start to realize, oh yeah, okay, I see that person came up with 100 ideas and this person was, sticking things together before they even had an idea. Then you can start to understand each other and get through the trust and the storming phase much, much faster. It's about accelerating the path to high-performing teams, and that acceleration happens in the storming phase of team building. And there's a good one that I do on because we haven't been able to do the physical kind of team building exercise. There are lots of virtual exercises you can do, just simple one. I'll have a whiteboard and try and draw the Eiffel Tower using circles together, things like that you can easily do. There's a great book, or even YouTube you can look at, called Task Masters. The book has like 1,000 different tasks in it, but you can just watch Task Masters. It's a bunch of 5 comedians that are set really stupid tasks to do. And of course, it's hilarious because they're all usually hopeless at it and very funny while they're doing it. But some of the tasks are excellent for team building, superb for team building. So Taskmaster is a good source of, there's a good website as well, Taskmasters. There's a good source of information for team building exercises. Good thoughts. Go ahead.
We did some great tasks in Serbia, like who can drink more vodka and who can dance better.
And that's the relationship and trust building, right?
I mean, some dance-offs. We had some cool exercises there. I think I've seen Taskmaster on YouTube. I thought it was a show where they do like some stupid things, but it's a challenge.
It's a very fun show. Good. Other thoughts, experiences on team building stuffs?
I think that escape rooms are really good way to kind of.
That's why escape rooms have flourished. Lots of businesses book escape rooms as team building exercises. Absolutely, an escape room. And, I've also been fortunate to watch people in escape rooms on team building. And, going back to Myers-Briggs, Jamie, if you've done Myers-Briggs, you can really see how people react under stress, and you can even predict how people are going to react under stress in an escape room, especially if you really put them under some kind of time pressure, like competing with another team in another escape room. Brilliant for team building.
I think Tom would put us in like a non-escapable escape room, just to watch us like try to escape with like no evidence, because that's more fun. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Well, we come to the end of our time, so hopefully that was a little bit insightful around how to build high-performing teams. Start with a good understanding of the 5 dysfunctions, and you can even kind of rate yourselves on the 5 dysfunctions. Think about the trust equation. Delivering on promises is a good way of accelerating trust. Forming, storming, norming, performing, especially the storming phase. Lots of team building exercises are fantastic then for accelerating the storming phase. And you know, sometimes little team building exercises only take 5 minutes to do and can have such a marvelous impact on the performance of a team. So it doesn't have to be, you know, the off-site where people get together. It can be a quick 5 or 15-minute exercise once a week, and it can significantly improve the performance of a team. So yeah, go for it. Do some team building exercises. And unfortunately, I don't think I will be able to join you in France because my wife is going to have to go back to England. Because of that, then I have to look after my children here and take them to school and everything. She has to go and look after her very sick father, which is absolutely the right thing to do at this moment in time. But that means in a few weeks' time, I might also have to move the timing of our normal catch-up. But I'll let you know and send you a survey in terms of what might be an alternative time that works well for you all as well.
Thank you, Mark. I have to drop. Sorry for a meeting with SG.
Very good. I think
Take care, and we'll talk next week, right?
then all of you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.
Sorry to hear about your wife's dad.
Oh, no, you're welcome. No problem at all. Thank you for your good wishes.
Okay. Cheers, Mark. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too. Have a great weekend. Bye now.
Bye.